Quentin. And with that, I'm delighted to introduce our speaker today, Mr. Paul Yates with I've Got a Name. Paul, take it away. And do you need to share your screen at all?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Just my mug.
All right. Thank you for
So,
being here today.
hey, well, thank you so much, and thank you for the introductions too. And a few of you I do know, and it's a pleasure to be here. And it's a great thing you're doing too. It's wonderful that we even have Zoom these days, that we can even continue to do this rather than meeting in person. But I do like meeting in person. I was telling Steve earlier, I'm an extrovert for sure. So working from home is not my cup of tea. I'd rather be out meeting people and such, but this is wonderful. I appreciate it. Just a little bit about me and my background. I always tell people I was born in Chicago because I am a diehard Cubs fan, but I only lived there 1 year. Lincoln's my home. I've lived in Lincoln my entire life, and I love Lincoln. And I've been very blessed with great employment opportunities. I worked for the city of Lincoln for 20 years in the Area Agency on Aging, helping older adults remain independent in their homes. And now I'm one. However you want to define older adult anyway. And then I work for Legacy Retirement Communities, which is a wonderful job. And then in 2000, let's see, it's 2007, six, I became the president of a marketing firm here in Lincoln. And it was kind of see what I wanted to do with my life if I wanted to go into that area. And about 3 years into that, my heart was just touched by an organization that was fighting for children over in Nepal. And there's a long story. I won't share the whole story, but I just felt called to leave that job. I had being paid very well, a great job. But I left that job in 2008 and started working with this organization called Tiny Hands International. They're now called Love Justice over in Nepal. And it's crazy because when I first went over there in 2008, that's when the stock market crashed. So I saw chaos in two different perspectives. I saw it from a third world country perspective, and I saw it here in our own country. And so it was really a change in my life. And I just fell in love with the people over there. But the point that really hit me was not just their children's homes, it was this thing called sex trafficking. And then that's when I heard that 27 million people were in slavery today. And I thought slavery was over. Well, slavery is not over. It's the worst it's ever been, actually. And and I was just taken by that. And so, and the part of what they deal with in slavery, human trafficking, is sex trafficking, young girls being lied to and taken across the border, Nepal, primarily to India, and sold as sex slaves in the brothels. So I was on this huge learning curve of what this injustice looked like and what it was. And in 2009, 2010, I met a gentleman by the name of Bob Burton. Bob works at the University of Nebraska. He's in the athletic department. I'm not sure what his title is now. I always explain, I told Steve, he's kind of Moose's right-hand man. But Bob's a great man with a great heart. And he came to the first human trafficking conference at the University of Nebraska in 2009. And he was taken back by this issue of sex trafficking and human trafficking in the world. And he was trying to find more purpose in his life too, aside from his job, which he loves dearly. And so he went to this conference, and when he got in his car and drove home, he heard a song that most of you probably know who Jim Croce was. When I speak to college students, they have no clue who that was. But he had a song called I've Got a Name. And what struck him about that in his heart at that moment was every one of these girls and women have a God-given name, and they have a greater purpose, and they should be treated with love, respect, and dignity, not destroyed. And it was crazy because he wanted to get involved, but how do you get involved in that? How do you fight that? And that was on a Thursday evening. On the Saturday in the Journal Star, there happened to be a story about the organization I was with and a picture with me with these when I was over in Kathmandu and of the Girls and Princess Home. And he was just like shocked that there was an organization now in Lincoln, Nebraska fighting this. So long story short, we met several times. And I always tell people, I've spoke around the country and mostly in the Midwest, a lot of major universities about this issue. And I have people raise their hand and want to get involved, but sometimes you don't hear from them again. And that's just life. Life gets in the way, but Bob will not leave me alone. He is just adamant to do something. And that was his heart, And so he started raising funds through various events, and most of them were at his church. and really put this organization on the map in Lincoln and the issue as well. And then he decided to look at Lincoln, Nebraska. Right before that, he was raising enough money for us in our border monitoring stations over in Nepal that I said, Bob, you've got a great job at the university and you're raising a lot of funds. I'm not the kind of person that thinks everyone should start a nonprofit, but you should really think about that because you don't want people questioning you about the resources you're bringing in. So he did that. So it started as a song, became an event, and became a nonprofit. And but in that journey, he started looking at Lincoln, Nebraska, and he's like one of my best friends. And so I started looking at it with him, and we were just blown away, really, by what we heard and what we saw. And we talked to some great people in this community. One is the former chief of police, Mr. Cassidy. I'm not sure what his title is now, Homeland Security of Nebraska or something. I don't know. Great man. But he talked to us a lot about women and prostitution and such. And it really struck us that in his work, it was statistics and crime. In our view, it was humanity. And what can we do about this? And then we met a gentleman by the name of Mike Smith, who started a indoor skateboard park now on 20th and Y called The Bay. And he was really helping at-risk youth, giving them purpose and letting them see their power and their strength in their life and their gifts. And from that, these are like connect the dots. We met Nikki, who was worked at Cedars Home at the time. And she had a rough childhood in her own life, but really wanted to give back. And so we started talking to them. And we started talking about this thing called sex trafficking. And that's when it was like crazy. I mean, you started hearing about, I think back then it was like 480 public kids in homeless kids in the public school system, at that age. And we started learning about couch surfing, you just, where are you going to sleep, and survival sex and all these things. And then from there, we met a young woman, and I'm very careful with this because she's an amazing woman and these are traumatic moments in her life, but she sat in that coffee shop and told her story. And she was, at 12, she'd been molested. At 14, she'd been raped. And soon after that, she was being sold by her girlfriend's dad, sold for sex. When I met her, she was pregnant. She was probably 21, 22. She had a child in high school. She just had a horrific life, but really a courageous woman. One of the top 4 that I've met in my career fighting this since 2008. But it just blew me away. And I started hearing about trap houses in Lincoln and certain parts of town. And so again, long story short, Bob really wanted to look into this. So I helped him with an event called Stolen Lives. And that young woman was going to tell her story, and we were going to videotape it and protect her identity, although she'd speak to you people right now. And then right before our event, when we were going to videotape her, she had complications with her pregnancy, so she couldn't. So we asked Nikki, and Nikki had another woman that could tell her story. And that day we were going to videotape her. She was tripping out on meth. We have another girl, and she told her story. And I'm just sitting there thinking, what in the world? You're kidding me, you know? And so we had this event. Bob raised some money, and then he started. He hired Nikki as an outreach director out of the Bay, and so she started helping young women and girls. And one quick story, she's sitting. This is just kind of what she was doing, helping them, take them by the hand. She was sitting in her car one day with this young girl that she'd been working with or knew for a couple of years, and all of a sudden, this girl really started to cry, and she looked at her and said, "What is wrong?" And she finally told her that her mother had been selling her to pay bills and for extra money. I mean, that's unfathomable to me, but that was the reality of this young girl's life. Fortunately or unfortunately, that mother is in jail. Fortunately for this woman, she had the heart and the courage to share this with Nikki, because this young woman now is married and has children. Where would she be today if she wouldn't have had Nikki to talk to help her? And that also addresses the issue of the guilt and the shame and the darkness of this issue, that it's not something that people really want to talk about, or even hear for that matter. But that's a great story of life change right there, what Nikki was doing for this young woman. And that's the model that we follow with our street outreach. One of the biggest challenges in 2016, when I became the first director, Bob had been kind of bugging me for a while. And he asked me if I would go down to the Capitol to hear a hearing that our Attorney General, Doug Peterson, who's a great man and a great leader in this fight in our state, he was going to talk, or they were going to talk about federal money he got to address this issue of sex trafficking in our state. And Bob asked me if I'd go to it because he was going to be out of town. It was a Friday at 3:00. And honestly, I wasn't real excited about going down there. I'd been there before, and our state senators really, I didn't feel like understood what the issue really was in our state. But when I went down that day, I was pleasantly surprised at the awareness that these people had. And I'll never forget Senator Patty Penzing Brooks hitting the table and saying, "These girls are not criminals. They're the victims. The criminals are the buyers and the sellers." And I was just so taken back by the awareness finally, all of this and the movement, that I called Bob when I got in my car and I said, "Let's talk next week." And I left my job. I left my comfort zone again. And he really didn't have the resources to pay me, but I said, "Let's just go. Let's just do this." And from there on, we built really the organization, because the first time in the organization's existence, I guess, well, what is I've Got a Name? They fight sex trafficking and they have Nikki. I mean, so we had to develop this. And so we have three pillars. One is awareness, and I'll get to that in a second, but how important it is that we're aware that this happens here. Second is take action, and that's our street outreach, and I'll talk about that too. And then the third pillar is inspiration, get involved. Annette here has been talking to me for quite a while, trying to get me to help build our board, which we need to do desperately. And she's inspired. She really wants us to grow and wants us to make more impact. And that's what it's all about: being inspired, using your gifts, like all of you here. I mean, you all have your own certain gifts, and you're all in your certain areas helping people, which is wonderful. But I think the biggest challenge we face right now is understanding that this exists here in our community and in our state. Our logo says "End Sex Trafficking Where We Live," because everyone seems to think that it's just overseas in the third world countries, that it's not here. And if it's here, it's like in New York City or Los Angeles, Chicago, Atlanta, Miami, the big cities. And if it's here, well, it has to just be up the road in Omaha and maybe Lincoln. Well, it's everywhere, okay? And when I started in 2016, Creighton University had just done some extensive research, the first of its kind and the only that I'm aware of in the state of Nebraska that's this extensive, on sex trafficking, or the commercial sex trade in Nebraska. And Creighton did a great job. They were basing all their information from a website called Backpage that's no longer up, but you could buy a computer, a car, or a human being. Basically, it was disgusting. And so in their research, what they found, and I'm just going to kind of cut to the chase, is that every 30 days, at least 900 individuals are for sale in our state. I said at least, okay? The researchers will always tell you these numbers are always underestimated. And this is all just from Backpage, that website. This is just a piece of the pie. This isn't all of it, but this is a big piece back then. And in the Lincoln area, at least 200 girls for sale. Okay. Again, the research online. I will tell you, our outreach director, Megan, most of the girls she works with are not being sold online. Okay. The average age of a girl entering the commercial sex trade is 13 or 14, depending what research you look at. I'll tell you right now, we're dealing with a girl who's 11, and Megan's been working with her since she's 10. Being sexually exploited on her phone. Okay. The average cost to purchase in our state is $210 an hour. $210 an hour. This is not that stereotypical, woman coming up to your car, get in the car for $25. This is the commercial sex trade. Okay. And in all the years that I've been learning this, I've learned a couple things. And part of this is my opinion too. I don't believe that this has anything to do with your ethnic background. This has nothing to do with your poverty guideline, although poverty can put you in situations that make you more vulnerable. The Creighton report said that, indicated that our population in Nebraska, about 5% is Black or African American. 50% of the ads were targeting towards that ethnic group. Doesn't mean that's an African American issue. It's not. As the chief of police in Milwaukee said when I was there speaking at an event, He said, these perpetrators are not looking just for the street smart girls. They're looking for your daughter. Okay. And I will tell you stories in Lincoln of an Uber driver who was taking a young woman to a very nice house in Lincoln and picking her up an hour half later, and another real nice house in Lincoln. This is not just in those stereotypical areas in town that you think, well, this probably happens there. Yeah, sure it does, but it happens everywhere. Upland, Nebraska, I think a population of 125 has unfortunately a case of a mother selling her 13-year-old niece or daughter. This is everywhere, okay? And I can send you this information, but there's I don't know if you can see this or not. I'm gonna try to hold it up here. This is a heat map, okay? And this heat map is kind of like the weather map. You know, when it's red, like last night in Lincoln, it was getting kind of red. We had a lot of rain all of a sudden. But that is that redness on that map is buyers and sellers. And Omaha is all lit up. And it's probably taken during the time of the College World Series, which is coming up again, which I was told per capita is the largest event where human trafficking exists in our country per capita. I-29, I-80. You have to understand this is not the event's fault. It's what is attracted by it, okay? I mean, just look at Lincoln, Nebraska, when the Husker game's on and all these jets flying in. These are people from all over the country coming in. And as one retired businessman told me who was in sales, he said, every time somebody came in town, they said, where's the action? Take me, where's the action? You know, that's what this is, okay? One of the biggest challenges we face is understanding what it is. And we are so, I don't know, influenced by media and by movies and such. And I think the biggest challenge we have is understanding that this is first real here in our city. Second of all, we have to get rid of those stereotypes of women, especially women in the life of prostitution. I have heard a lot of people say, well, they make good money or it's their choice. Why don't they get a real job? Well, they don't understand the complexity of it. You see, on the front of our brochure, there's a quote from a girl. She says, I was sold for $60 and some meth by my aunt. I was 15 at the time. Most of these victims know their perpetrator. They know who they are. This isn't being picked up and thrown in a van in a parking lot and abducted and raped and destroyed. That happens very small percentage of the time. It's more the abduction of the heart and the mind is what it is. I want to just share with you a quick story of a mother taking her daughter to go shoe shopping. And she goes into this store and the daughter sees her friend working there and they start talking and they're all excited. And the mom starts asking this girl, how long have you worked here? How much do you get paid? And how many hours do you work? And this girl goes on to explain that her parents told her she can only work so many hours. And because of school's number one. She's also on the soccer team and that's number two. So I can only work so many hours. So this mother starts talking with her and says, you know, I own a spa and I've got a great part-time job and you have a beautiful face and you're so bubbly. You'd be perfect at that desk. Consider it. I'll pay you more than you're getting paid now. So that girl takes that job. And after a while, after working there several months, she starts to realize there's more men coming in here than women at certain times of the day. And then she starts to realize there's something going on in the back room that's not spa, you know? And then eventually here comes that question. Do you want to make more money? Certainly that girl would not go back there. You heard parents are setting goals and priorities in her life until the FBI find her back there. That's in Omaha. Or the mother here in Lincoln years ago who thought the bruises on her daughter's body was from athletics because she was very athletic until she saw her image on her computer. Her boyfriend was selling her for sex. Okay. Or the gentleman that goes to a high school football game, he's a recruiter. And he tries to find these young girls that just want to hear what everyone wants to hear. You know, you're cute, you're this, you're that. And then they invite him to a party and they go to it and they offer him some alcohol, they offer him some drugs. And then all of a sudden, you know, that's not free. That's not free. That's a recruiter in Omaha who's hired by a couple. You know what? Time out. My computer just told me that my battery's going to die. Let's take a commercial break. Hold on just a second.
I'd like to interject while he's fixing that if you have not been on the I've Got a Name
I'm
website,
sorry.
you need to go on it and it will make you just sick at your stomach.
I'm sorry. I started early this morning, earlier than normal. So anyway, that's the reality of what's happening here in our. Oh, this is ridiculous. There we go. That's the reality of what's happening in our state, and that's what the reality is happening in our city. And we need to know that this was real. We need to know that this really exists here. And our outreach is the foundation of what we do, as I mentioned, and that's Megan. And she who uses her life story, her past life story to help these girls. Megan lived in a great house, never knew her father, had a good life until her teen years, and she started to struggle. And then her mom got cancer and she died, and everything was just hit. She was a single mom at the time, and she was invited to get a job as an escort. She was so desperate and so broken, she took that job. And she became an escort and a full-blown meth addict for 10 years. She's been out of that life for 13 years, and her story is incredible. And if you want to email me, I will send you the video of her story. We don't publish it on our website, but we do share it. She's an incredible mother today, and she can relate to these women and these girls. She goes out to the jail and visits with women out there. We get referrals from different organizations, from the police department. Some just go on our website and are concerned about somebody, and she starts building that trusting relationship with these women and girls. As I said, that 10-year-old, she's now 11. She's working also with Child Advocacy Center, but Megan takes her out about every week or so and just tries to unpack her life. And it's heartbreaking. It really is. So the street outreach is what we're all about. We are a nonprofit. We're also a faith-based organization, but we don't force our beliefs on anyone. It's just why we do what we do. And we also exist 100% on donations supporting us. As I explained to Steve earlier, we don't have an office. My office is home now or coffee shops. We're out and about always, spreading awareness and speaking. That's what I enjoy doing, speaking to the public and getting people more aware of what's really going on in our community. And then we're going to be moving in throughout Nebraska. We're also starting a men's movement this year. And we've just announced that to get men engaged in this and fight in this and be a voice and stand up against it. And that's the demand side of it. I understand boys get trafficked too, they do. But our focus and our mission is girls. If we'd come across a young boy or a man, I would be involved in that immediately. But our mission is to help women and girls, and that's through Megan. So yeah, that's it in a nutshell. If you have questions for me, they're usually great questions. There's something I forgot to mention. If not, I can go on.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So it seems to me you have a perhaps unique challenges with marketing. That on the one hand, okay, well, you want to tell people, well, this is what we do, and this is how bad things can get, and this is why our work is important. But on the other hand, if you share too many details on that, then it's like, oh, okay, well, people that are it can lead to informing people, oh, well, this is how to avoid the techniques that you're using, or hey, these are the hot spots if I'm interested in again engaging in the stuff that you're fighting. So how do you balance that, the value of sharing information, but also on the other hand, you don't want to say too much?
No, I appreciate that. I think one of the biggest challenges we have, as I mentioned earlier, Gordon, was this is a very sensitive issue. It's sex, drugs, and money for the most part, and it's very sensitive. And the information that we have and what Megan's working with is extremely confidential. And I'm ultra sensitive to these women and these girls. And it's hard for us when you talk about marketing. We can talk, I don't like talking about statistics because these girls aren't statistics, okay? They're human beings, okay? And yet it's also difficult for us to start sharing their stories, because no, it's their life. We got to protect that. I mentioned that young woman, her story she told me earlier. I mean, she is doing so well right now. She would actually speak on to this in her life. I had a woman a while back that wanted to speak at one of our events, and I said, I'd rather you not, because I didn't feel like she was prepared for it yet. She did convince me otherwise, and we were up there with her, and it was very healing for her. But I'm really sensitive about that. And you're also talking about just the issue at large. This is a very lucrative business. I mean, it is, unfortunately.
It's one thing to be protecting the individual, which it sounds like you're doing a great job of doing. But I guess my question is maybe more around around the corporate aspect of it. Okay, so say one particular person, fine, they're protected, they're out of the sex trade, but it's like, well, here's the hotspots, here's the times to go to whatever to find whatever the action is. That this is kind of if that information becomes widely disseminated, for instance, then that hurts your mission.
Well, I'm not sure if I'd totally agree with that, because these perpetrators, these people that know this, they know how to do it. I mean, this is not a new injustice. This is something that's been going on for centuries. The events that I talk about, saying that these events are hotspots, they know that already. People that purchase or that steal someone's life and sells them, it's a slow process. They will work on a woman or a girl as long as it takes until they get them. They're investing their time in them. I mean, I could tell you story after story after story. So they're way ahead of the game, unfortunately. Well, listen, we just found out about this. Maybe this is kind of addressing your question. We just found out about an app that's called OnlyFans. Okay. And we came across it because a student intern at the University of Nebraska said, well, yeah, some girls, they get on there and they sell. And we're going, what? Yeah. So my wife researched this, and there's a woman over in Great Britain who makes 40,000 well, back then, euros a month. And basically you subscribe, and she takes her clothes off, does all that stuff. And that's right there on your phone. That's right there online. So when we talk about the issues of cell phones and internet pornography and that, we don't generally list those. Well, this is where you can go. You want to make some money, this is where you can do it. No, we don't do that. But we do need to talk to the parents about these things with their phones. The phone's a big hotspot today, and the internet is just huge. So yeah, that's where we have to be a little sensitive and careful. And the other thing we have to be careful with is the age group we're talking to. I can talk to young kids. I'll totally talk differently when I talk to adults about the issue. But I'll tell you, these young kids know more than you can imagine. Dr. Ron Hampton did research for the Governor's Task Force in 2015 and found that 1 out of every 250 high school and middle school girls enter the commercial sex trade in Nebraska every year. 54 known that year. So there is a sensitivities all over, but we also want to hit the nail right on the head and address the issue. And actually, even the men's movement we're starting. Listen, we know there's a lot of great men out there, there are a lot of great men out there, but there's also some men that have some issues, and they're purchasing. And then people say, well, why don't you make it legal? Well, if you really understood it, you're going to make it so much worse, because these people that are buying, they don't care if it's a 15-year-old or a 25-year-old or a 12-year-old. So
is there not enough police, not enough incarceration? I mean, why is the justice system not fixing this?
Yeah, great question, Luke. And that's something that I've been working with since I started, even over in Nepal, because you had a different situation. All the police over there were corrupt, and they just pay off bribes. Over here, you don't have that here. But we have is just an understanding of what it is, and I will tell you, even the laws that change. Patty Pansing Brooks and another state senator authored a law that actually made the fine much steeper than it ever was. It used to be, if you drive through a construction site on the interstate, your ticket was more than purchasing or selling a human being. Megan was just involved with a case with a gentleman this last summer she was working with 2 women, a woman that he trafficked, and then she trafficked for him, a minor. And that gentleman is serving now 47 or 47 years in prison. Okay. Amen. Awesome. Justice served. Law enforcement struggles because, I'll just tell you, because of budget. I know the Lincoln Police Department, we work with them, and hopefully we're going to be in the back end of their sting operations to help these girls, because they've also figured out they no longer really arrest these girls. They get the data from their phones, they get all this stuff. Again, that's Patty Penzing Brooks' cry. These girls are not criminals, okay? You know, they're the victims. And then how do we address the people that are buying them? And so law enforcement's learning more and more about it. That money from the Attorney General was actually to train our state patrol and all of them and what to look for and what to be aware of. I don't think all those trainings are mandatory. So we're going out and speaking too. I was in Seward County about a year ago, speaking to all the first responders in Seward and York County. And a lot of them were kind of looking at me like, wow. Yeah. And then that's another thing we're dealing with right now too is, so now what do we do? If I see something, who do I call? And I make it clear, we are not law enforcement. You know, call law enforcement. If you go to our website and you're concerned about someone, you can click on it. And the first thing it says, is this an emergency? Call your local law enforcement. You know, and we have some referrals that are just concerned about a woman, you know, or a girl. And so we'll look into that. And if they're a minor, totally different story, because we're obligated to contact law enforcement with that. So, but it's getting better, but we have a long way to go. And that's just holistically for our country to understand the reality of this.
Hey,
Do you
Paul,
find that people in Lincoln believe that this is serious here, the general public?
You know, and I think it is getting better, but no, I don't. I remember when I first started this in 2016, really starting to push this agenda here in our own city, people just kind of look at me. I mean, you know, this really good friend of mine is a cardiologist. I told him about it and he kind of, yeah, well, wow. And then all of a sudden a week later, there was a sting operation and these 13, 12-year-old girls. And he called me and says, I can't believe it. I said, I know, I'm telling you. And it's not just happening when the news reports it. It's happening all the time. And so it is improving. And that's why even our name is getting out there, you know. A funny story, Give to Lincoln is right now. It's a great opportunity to support us financially. And Bob said, well, we really don't have a whole lot of luck with that before I came aboard. And I said, Bob, because it's called I've Got a Name. What's I've Got a Name? You know, and so I added end sex trafficking, you know, and then people go, oh, is that here? And now people are getting more and more aware of that. Yeah. John, did you have a question?
yeah, you know, you talked about a lot of times with the families that are distressed financially or selling their sibling or their kids.
Mhm.
Is there I don't know if you call it a mafia or a mob, is there a whole network nationally / and or locally that are driving this sex trafficking?
Well, I would say yes, definitely. But you have to understand this whole situation is about money and
Yeah.
power, especially power. You know, destroying a life, this is not the beauty of a sexual relationship between two people who are in love. Okay, this
No.
is power.
Yeah.
Here, maybe this answers your question. So if you Google Super Bowl when Dallas Fort Worth, was that 6-7 years ago? There's an article in there. It says an estimated 10,000 women came into the Dallas Fort Worth area during Super Bowl week. So my question is, where did these 10,000 individuals come from? Is it just 10,000 individuals? They just and where did they go? Did these gentlemen's clubs need more girls on the polls? You know, no, it's modern day slavery, you know, and yet you can go even down to a micro level. There was a woman in Lincoln who owned 6 women, and she'd go up to Omaha and get 6 more and sell them on football Saturdays here, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, into Sunday. That woman no longer does this, changed her life dramatically about 10 years ago. But that's the micro level of this too, you know, but
Yeah.
certainly it is a huge issue. And maybe that's why we don't hear enough about it. Maybe that's why we don't have the laws that we really need to have, but it's a wake up call. And that's really our mission. Wake up, you know?
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
First of all, I apologize for coming on both late and having my speaker or my unmuted. I'm usually not that person, so I apologize.
Well, my computer was dying, so that was embarrassing.
You know, you talked about Nepal. I've dealt with this in Uganda with the orphanage we've worked with for years, and so I understand that part of it. That's even a bigger issue to try to fix, because you're right. As in Nepal and Uganda has, it's everyone's corrupt. And once you understand that comes from poverty, from a
Mhm.
lot of people, even the people you deal with. It comes from poverty because they're protecting themselves. So they don't tell you the truth the first time,
Yep.
etc.
Yep.
My real question is, and I apologize if I missed it, what in your opinion do we do about the issue that there are men out there in droves that purchase these girls? I mean, that's the source of, I mean, obviously we have to reach the girls, but what do we do about that sickness that is out there? Is it about changing the public perception of women? Is it, I mean, what is it? Do you have any ideas on that?
Yeah, maybe Christine, you didn't hear me. I don't know what time you came
I
in, but
apologize.
no, that's fine. I did address, we're starting now to address a men's movement. And what does that look like? Well, first of all, it's awareness to men that this is real. And that for the most part, the demand side of it is men. Again, there's some great men out there, but the main part of the demand of this model, of this business model, if you will, are men. And so how do we address that? We still need to have dialogue about it. We need to start talking to men. A very good friend of mine, I'll never forget, a couple of years ago, saw me at a coffee shop, asked me what I'm doing, told him what I'm doing. He said, "Oh, I hear those women out in Vegas make really good money." And I looked at him and I said, "Sit down a second, let's talk." A week or two later, all of a sudden he's saying, "Oh," and he really gets it. He's understanding it. One of the things that I haven't explained is just the word prostitute and what we think of. I always say a woman or a girl in the life of prostitution. I hate labeling, okay? Because you get that, and usually it's from us men saying, well, they make good money, or why don't they get a real job, or why, that's their choice. No, you don't understand the depth and the gravity of what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
And so we need to start having that dialogue. And so that's what our men's movement is, to start, and it starts at the children. It starts talking to your sons about respecting a girl and who they are and themselves, and start talking to their daughters about respecting yourself and who you are. These phones and all these apps to make them look prettier and all these things, the pressure is enormous on them. I just spoke to a group of mainly men. Usually it's mainly women. And I said, "Okay, guys, I got a question for you. So if you're downtown somewhere," these are college guys, "if you're downtown somewhere at a bar or something, you're walking home, how many of you are afraid to walk home? How many of you have pepper spray in your pocket?" And they look at me, and the women know exactly what I'm talking about. And so it's that whole dynamic, and that men's movement is to start to address these issues, start talking about it and have dialogue about it. What is a man? What's it mean to be a man? Is it purchasing a 15-year-old girl? Is it getting on pornography and destroying your life? And I've met so many men that have had that porn library and they're out of it, and they're just on a mission now to tell their friends. I had a guy that would go fishing every year down at Table Rock down in Missouri, and they'd stop at those gentlemen's clubs. He goes, "I don't do that anymore." And I tell the guys why I don't. So if we can one by one get these men out of this life and start to become a voice, we can address the demand. Yeah.
And Paul, you know about this, there's the Every Man a Warrior series. And in our men's group, we've been addressing that. And I'm speaking as a man, it's pornography gets put in your face no matter how hard you try to avoid it.
Yeah.
And so part of that, the reason why it draws you into a depth level of pornography that you want something, and I'm going to say it straight out, different and better.
Yes.
That you want the real thing, not the pornography. And Lonnie Berger, who created Every Man a Warrior, and it's a Christian-based thing for men, has just put out a book called Every Man a Pure Warrior. I don't know if you're aware of that, but it's a whole book about how do you take men who you've been mentoring and working with and just confront it head on and address that. And I think that's something could integrate well with your men's group.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think the research that I've seen, it just pornography just totally rewires your brain and everything. And it just
totally, it's an addiction in
destroys
itself.
You. Totally it is. Totally it is. Yeah.
Paul, there is a men's Christian organization in our building. I only work out of our office one day a week, and I can't think of the name of it, but I'm just wondering if you can approach them.
It's called CBMC, Christian Businessmen's
Oh, yeah, I
Connection.
know CBMC. Yep.
Yeah. Oh,
Is that it? The one
Yeah,
in,
and Paul, that's how you and I met.
Yeah, that's right. That's
years
right,
ago.
John. Mhm.
on
And-
44th and O?
Yes, yes.
Oh, okay, good. I
I-
haven't had a chance to really talk to them, so I didn't know exactly, but that might be something. I don't know. Just thought of it.
If you walk in there, ask to talk to Larry Mittendorf. He's the director, co-director of it, and the other person is at Nick's. I've been on staff there part-time for a number of years, and now I'm doing it with our own church. And they're very, very aware of this issue, and part of Every Man a Warrior series, as well as one-on-one mentoring. I don't mean to jump into this. But,
No, it's fine.
and now the new series of Every Man a Pure Warrior. But you're right. Is it Christine? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's something they're very, very aware of. And to be able to do one-on-one with men, I'm mentoring about 5 guys right now. And 2 of them, we've addressed that whole issue. And
Yeah.
it's crazy, you know.
It is. And that's why we need to start addressing that side of it. And honestly, I mean, this is just our plug. The Give to Lincoln, our campaign this year is for that men's movement funding, plus our outreach, of course. But we need to have someone lead this too. I can start off doing it and pushing it, but we need to have some leadership in it too, so it grows. I'm excited about it. And we are Nebraska. We're focused here in Lincoln because it's where we live and our resources allow us, but we are Nebraska. So I go out and speak all around the state too. And even outside the state, if it's right outside the state. The more awareness, the better. I always say, imagine if everyone was more aware how different things would be. So, yeah, that's why I appreciate this opportunity. All of you
Thank
at
you.
home or whatever. Yeah, it's
Are
great.
you still connected in any way at all with Nepal?
Just I have friends over there and family over there. Yeah. Yep. I get emails from them. I mean, you meet those kids over there and I was Uncle Paul to about 200 kids. It's kind of hard to remove that from your life.
Amen.
Yeah.
So to rephrase the answer that you gave me to my earlier question, the reason why it's not a issue sharing aggregate statistics on what you're doing is because a lot of the people that would be into this already know it, and there's a much bigger value in spreading broader awareness about that to a wider range of people, that that it happens, and B, that look at their devastating impacts on the children.
Yeah, very much so.
Unfortunately, we are out of time. So Paul, I would like to thank you for the powerful message you've passed along today. As a way to wrap this up, I would urge everybody to check out their website. And there is a big red button in the upper right-hand corner that says donate. If you feel so moved to help their cause here in Lincoln, which is a very worthy one, let's click that button and donate and put our money where our mouths are, so to speak. So with that, thank you so much, Paul. Thank you everyone who attended today. And I hope you'll all join us next week to hear the story of Marianne Stallings with Bridge to Better Living. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Paul,
Good to see
Yeah.
you.
do you have something that can go on social media for Give to Lincoln Day that I can share?
Yes.
Do you have
if you go-
anything
ju-
special out there that we can get out for you?
Yeah, if you email me, we have a marketing person that helps with that. We do our Facebook, I've Got a Name, has a lot of posts on there with links and everything. And we also have our emails we send out to people. But my email address is paul@ivegotaname.org. No
Okay.
hyphen paul@ivegotaname.org, or just hit contact us on the website. That's my second name, contact us. So it all comes to me. But yeah, that'd be wonderful. Spread the word out there as much as you can. A lot of great organizations, very worthy organizations out there, and Give to Lincoln, and we're grateful for that. But we do need the support this year for sure. So
Thanks,
Thank you.
Paul.
Yeah.
if you want me to speak to any other groups, just let me know. Get me out of this house. Okay,
Paul, I'm going to talk to you about doing our men's group.
that'd be great.
In the fall.
Reach out, reach
right.
out. Love it. Starting to
All right,
pick up
Paul.
again finally. Yeah, good.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you.
Hey, thank you all so much.
Thanks
Take care.
again, Paul.
Yep. Thank you, Steve, and best of luck to you in your retirement.
I appreciate that. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay. Bye-bye.